I want people to focus more on creating happy money, money that comes into your life with that positive energy, money that you enjoy making, going to work, and it's not so much of a chore. Hello and welcome to the Happy Money Podcast. On today's show, we're going to be discussing how unhappy money and stress affect our everyday lives. Mickey, how are we doing today?
Doing well, Pops. How are we doing?
And I know this was your idea, and I love the idea because I wrote the book, Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy, not because money makes you happy, but because of this topic and what unhappy money did to me early on. Do you remember when I worked at the restaurant?
Oh, yes.
What were your thoughts about me working in the restaurant? What was your general memory of that whole 15 or 20 years?
I think comparing it now as an adult looking back, there was a huge difference in, I think, the way you interacted with everyday life. There was a lot more stress, a lot more headache going on with that. And now I think you've learned how to manage that stress better.
You know what I remember? I remember you coming down to work, getting in at work at 5 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock sitting down, eating baked clams, not having stress. But you're right. I put a lot of that stress on me. And when I started out, I was very fortunate. I married your mom, and God was looking down on me because with your mom came your grandpa, and your grandpa was way ahead of the times when it came to health and nutrition. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was 28 years old, I'm in the walking box and I get this like pain in my back I've never had before. I'm like, what's going on? I get out of the walking box. I can't stand up. I'm in such pain. So my family, all the medical world, you got to get an MRI. You got to go to the doctor. Something's going on. Yeah. I go to Julia's dad. He lays me down and he starts talking in this mumbo jumbo. I had no idea what he was talking about. Inflammation and cortisol. And I'm like, could it be that? And after a couple of days, pain went away. But it was a recurring theme for me over the next few years because it was such a high stress environment. And a couple of things led to that, Michael. I wasn't eating really well. Right. I had so much stress. I guess it was happy money because I really liked what I did, but it was sort of unhappy in another way because that was all the focus.
You're constantly going at it. You're always stressed. You're worried about the employees, and it gets to you after a while, doesn't it?
It did. And I remember I was in that cycle for a few years. For a few years, I was stuck in that cycle. And like I said, thankfully, I went to Grandpa. Grandpa kept treating me. Then I went to another doctor who was an AK, an applied kinesiologist in New York. And I just kept that regimen going. But I remember my family just pressuring me and telling me to take anti-inflammatories and telling me to take drugs and there was something wrong. There wasn't really anything wrong. It was just the way I was managing stress, handling stress, and taking everything on me. And I just wasn't living a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, I read a study recently that basically stress can shave some years off your life too. And so there even is that aspect of stress can be too unhealthy. There is a level of stress that's healthy to have, of course. But when it gets to the point of you're always stressed, it's always on your mind, then you have to step back and ask yourself, is this actually helping me?
Do you have any stories when stress or something really affected your body?
Yeah, so I think a few times in college, I had some experiences of just constantly being stressed about certain things. I mean, half the time it kind of worked out anyway. And so a lot of times we put it upon ourselves to get so stressed. I got to get this perfect grade. I got to get this project done right. And it always does work out in the end somehow, right? Like there has never been a situation in which something has been crazy detrimental. You know what I mean? Especially in college. Like when you look back on it, I was just talking to somebody recently and they were talking about perfectionism in college and eventually just said, I look back on it and I thought, okay, I didn't have to do that. Like my life is going to be exactly the same in a way, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's that kind of idea of, do I need to be putting this much pressure on myself? Is it really doing me any good or is it paralyzing me in the moment? And am I just stuck?
So there's a certain balance because I think you do need stress.
No, you do need stress.
Pressure makes diamonds. So if you're all lackadaisical and you're never doing anything, there's not much you're going to accomplish in life. But even if you're stressed, there are certain things that you can do to alleviate that stress. At that time, my focus was solely on providing for the family. I never went to shoot guns. I never went fishing. I never did anything fun. All it was like that. And I think if people can sit back and say, all right, I need to recharge. I need to take a weekend off. I was working every weekend. And then when it came time to get into real estate, I was working 7 days a week. I was burning the candle, they say, at both ends. That's unsustainable after a while. After a while, it's completely unsustainable.
Yeah. I think that's interesting when you say that because so many people have it in their heads of I have to be constantly working. And I think it's built on this idea of their worth is their work. And so when you separate work from their life, they don't know what to do. And so you have this person that's only knows how to work, doesn't know how to relax, doesn't know how to enjoy their life, and they kind of forget why they're working in the first place. Like you work to do things that aren't work in a sense. If you enjoy your work, that's one thing, right? I mean, you can enjoy your work, but again, it's like we work to live.
So it's interesting. That's the problem. Most people, when they start out, they're doing a job or doing something they're not thinking about, and very few. Unless you get older, your midlife crisis, that's what happened to me. I was doing the work. I was stressed. I didn't like it. And I looked back and I said, do I see myself here in the next 10 years being happy? And I wasn't happy. And that's the problem. If you're under stress, but you love your job and you love what you're doing, you're making a big impact, you can handle that stress a lot better than if you're at a job where you're hiding in the kitchen, washing dishes and just being miserable there. You put that stress on top of being unhappy as well. That's a real burden for people. And that's what was happening to me. I just didn't like being there. I didn't see any future for myself. So that stress just put so much effort and so much toll on my body that it was unsustainable.
And I think it's interesting you mentioned that. It's the idea of that we're so stressed that we're going to keep going on with our lives anyway. And so I think that there's something there. It's the idea of I'm so stressed out, but I'd rather be this stressed and this hurt than actually acknowledging what's going on in our lives. There's some kind of trade-off that happens there. You know what I mean?
Yes. And for me, when I was at the restaurant, those last couple of years that I was there, what I ended up doing was I found something that I really enjoyed, and that was real estate. And so if you're at a job or you're doing something that you don't like, look for a side hustle. Look for something that you do like. For me, it was, okay, I'm at the restaurant. I'm working hard during the day. Well, let me take a break and do some real estate, underwrite some deals, talk to some brokers. That was super exciting for me. While this wasn't, I was making unhappy money here. What I was trying to do is trying to create a level of happiness with this job. And because this was where I really wanted to be, but I wasn't there yet. I couldn't just leave everything, be irresponsible, quit this and go to this. There was a transition. But I think most people don't even think that, because when you're in that negativity, right, your body's being flooded with cortisol. You're in a sympathetic state. That's all you know. You can't think clearly. Everything is negative. Everything is stressful. There's like a weight on your shoulders. And that affects everything. That affects your physiology. That affects your mental health. Ask me how I know.
Oh, I know. I know how you know.
And for me, it started after the fire at the restaurant. We had the fire, and it's like, what's the future? Like, what does it look like? After 9 weeks, we reopened, thankfully. Then we had a snowstorm. 3 weeks after that, we had to reclose again. So it was like all of that, ups and downs. And I think some of the things that people can do is, talk about nutrition, talk about health, talk about some of the positive things that you can do to combat stress.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting because also at the same time, it's like, what do we do? I think I already mentioned this, but what are we doing outside of work as well, right? Obviously, if your job is beyond horrible and there's other places you can go to, it's probably a good idea to look into that, right? But again, like, what are we doing outside of our work that's productive and healthy in such a way that allows us to come back to work refreshed?
I love. So if you're listening to this right now, what I would do is try to do like a life inventory. Try to figure something out what you're really good at, what your skills are, what brings you energy. And if you start looking at it from that perspective, okay, this brings me energy. So for me, it was really simple. I loved to learn. I love to do real estate. I actually like to write books. We've written several books. I like to do the podcasting. I like to build a brand. I like to build a business. Those are all things that really bring me a lot of energy. The restaurant was the total opposite of that. No wonder why I was miserable. So I think if you do a life inventory of the skills that you have and of the things that you really enjoy doing, I think if you start focusing on that, it's not like you're going to quit your job tomorrow and start a podcast, but maybe if you do have a job and you have a couple hours a week dedicated to something that you do love, maybe it's exercise, maybe you love working out, maybe you love going fishing, maybe you love shooting guns, maybe you love writing a book, whatever that is, do that on the side and try to focus on things that will bring you energy.
And that's normally how businesses start in the end. It's someone has a job, they get so freaking fed up with it and they start something by themselves anyway. A side hustle, a side gig, whatever you want to call it. And then they end up doing that full time.
I was speaking to a recruiter on the Jake and Gino podcast. His name is Bill Casco. And he said something really enlightening that I didn't realize, but it happened to me back in '08. All of a sudden, there were really not many jobs out there. Companies were downsizing. People were getting laid off. And that's when the side hustle really started. I met Jake in '09. I started my side hustle right at that time because I just I couldn't have my job as being self-sustaining. And I think that's sort of been like the trajectory over the last 15, 18 years where people have these side hustles. Why do they have a side hustle? It means their regular hustle is not what they like. So why
Either that or it's not enough.
it's not enough.
Not enough money or not enough.
Yeah,
They
but
don't enjoy it.
for me, it sort of was enough. I was making enough to pay for the
live in
family,
New
right?
York.
Just to live. Yeah, we could have figured it out somehow, but I think it was for me more than just money. I knew that I was unhappy there. I knew that I had more talents and more skills than being stuck there. So the side hustle was like sort of an escape for me. And just to get out of that daily mundane grind and find something that I truly enjoyed.
Yeah, and I think that's starting to come back more and more. The idea of let's work somewhere that we enjoy or do things that we enjoy.
Mhm.
Evan O'Leary from Shark Tank has a great analogy for how he hires people, and it's I don't hire people who their entire life is just work. It's this idea of I hire people who have a hobby in the arts and the music, because those kinds of people know how to step back from the work, recharge, and come back better the next day. Or same thing with business owners too, right? Like you can kind of see every business owner has some sort of hobby they enjoy doing. There's something, fishing, shooting guns, all this stuff. They have something that takes their mind off of work, and then they come back the next day and they know how to.
That's
their brain
interesting.
resets.
Is that why I'm still singing opera then? Is
Yeah,
that why you're
so.
telling me? I go once a week. I'm not really that good at it, but it just takes my mind off of everything.
Yeah.
It makes me see that I can make mistakes. It makes me see that I'm getting better. I enjoy it. In money coaching, there's archetypes. Archetypes are what people would consider a character that's inside of you. And one of the archetypes in money coaching is called the creator artist. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about that character inside of you that is sort of detached from the world, but they're so creative. They're non-materialistic. They're doing the work because they love to do the work. And I had very little creator artists early on in my life. The only thing I had was what we call the warrior in money coaching and the tyrant. The warrior is the one who's driven. He's going to go forward. He's going to make all the good decisions. He's going to work really hard. And then you have the tyrant, who is like the shadow or the negative side of the warrior, where the tyrant is fearful. He's controlling. And I had both of those dynamics going on. And I wish I had more creator artists. And that's what I have right now. I have a little bit more creator artists where I can go out and enjoy. And I love the work to begin with. So the work has a little bit of creator artist creativity inside of it. But I'm also doing things outside of the work to continue to elicit that creator artist inside of me.
Yeah, even with that, it's cool because music and art actually does improve your intelligence significantly. Yes. It really does. I've been playing guitar for 10 or 15 years now, and it makes you think outside the box. Right? You've got to think, okay, what notes can I play here? What does it sound like? You have to really think about things that you normally wouldn't think about, right? And that goes for anything, right? You pick up any kind of hobby or you pick up any kind of anything, you have to learn how to think outside the box and make it your own.
What are some things that people can do if they're stressed about their financial situation? I've got some ideas, but I'd love to hear from you, from young adults saying, this is what I can do to alleviate my stress when it comes to my finances.
Well, it comes down to this. You're always going to have some kind of money stress in the end, right? At the end of the day. And so let's tackle on the person itself. Let's say, how can we learn to help the person who is making the decisions? Let's start there, right? And so what I like to say is I learned a great trick for cortisol, which is literally doing squats throughout the day. And that brings down cortisol from what I've seen. I don't know.
Is that why I hear upstairs like banging and stuff like that? Are you doing squats during the day?
I do squats during the day.
That's a great tip. I like that.
Yeah.
So you're trying to lower your cortisol. You're trying to manage the cortisol in your body. Basically, cortisol is a drug that gets shot into your body. It's fight or flight. You're under stress. And you're like, okay, let me manage the cortisol. How did that become a habit for you?
So again, I spend a lot of time writing and sitting down on the computer when I work. And so I realized that my body definitely tenses up and whatnot. And so squatting really helps relieve a lot of the stress. And a lot of what goes on in the body affects the brain. So if your body is super tense, your brain's probably going to be in the same path. And so if we can relieve the tension in the body, it can help you, actually up here as well.
And what else do you do? Any other tips?
So I think with stress, it's interesting because a lot of times just talking out loud what's going on really helps, especially with somebody. Like if you're going through some kind of money trauma, money experiences, definitely talk to somebody. Right?
Okay, I was going to say, I heard somebody talking upstairs as well. Are you talking to yourself right now too upstairs?
But probably am, let's be honest.
So I like that. Get it out. And the thing that you have to understand is you're making an observation. Most people don't know that they're under stress, that they have money stress. Yeah. So that's why this is important to be listening to this right now, because you have to be aware of the problem before you can even have some type of solutions to the problem.
Yeah. And I would even, this is kind of a crazy thing to say, but I would assume that you have some sort of money thing that isn't right. Because let's be honest, like everyone has little things here and there about money that they probably don't even know about. I even looked at my own life and I said, okay, where do I have some of these things that aren't the healthiest? And I'll even find myself like, I'll go buy something random that I don't even need just because I enjoy buying random things. And I even have to look at that and say, okay, what's the reason for that? And then I'll go back and see, oh, it's because of this, that, and the other thing. And do I need coaching? Do I need whatever it is? Like, I think it'd be great. But at the same time, it's like we all have something regardless of what we think.
The important question is it on your credit card or is it on my credit card? Okay. If it's on your credit card,
I'm not scamming Papa G. Don't worry. I wouldn't do that.
It's okay. You can hit my credit card up. You've earned it because I think you've got some great habits. But for me, if I'm going to talk about like real habits for money to reduce stress, and this is for everybody. If you have a little bit of money, you're going to be stressed. If you have a lot of money, you're still going to be stressed. It's a different kind of stress because you have to continue to perpetuate that money. And then all of a sudden you have a burden of it. You've made this money. You're afraid to lose it. You want to be able to be a good steward of it. You want to be able to pass that on. But if you're out there, for me, when I was stressed at the restaurant, I sort of knew that I had a safety net. One thing you can do if you're stressed, be completely open and honest with yourself. Open up the books. That may cause a ton of stress early on, but rip off the Band-Aid. Yeah. And get help with a financial planner. Get help with a money coach. See what's going on. Why do you have to go around? I'm going to have to coach you after this call now. Why do you have to go around and buy a few things? Because you may be under stress and your dopamine is low. You want to get that little dopamine hit in your brain and you go buy it. Now, you don't do it detrimentally because I don't see a ton of crap upstairs. I mean, I go upstairs. There's not a lot of stuff lying around, so you don't do it. It's more of an enjoyment. And more importantly, you can afford to do it because you know how much money you've got coming in. You've got great savings. So the first thing is to start building your financial foundation. And that's what it is. So looking at all the debt that you have and trying to put little money saved aside, because the biggest stress you can have about money is you're going okay, you're doing everything all right. Then all of a sudden the car breaks down and you need $2,000 for the car. That'll bring an inordinate amount of stress if you don't have that money saved up. That's the first place that I would start when you're looking at, trying to alleviate some stress when it comes to money. Let's have some money saved for that quote unquote rainy day. It's never for a sunny day. It's always for a rainy day when the car breaks down, the AC goes. And if you have to scramble for that money or you don't have that money aside, that's going to cause a ton of stress. I think the second part is look at the credit card expenditures. Why are you spending money inordinately? Why do you have large balances on your credit cards? That will bring a lot of stress. There's no reason to keep up with the Jones. Your name is Mike. My name is Gino. Let's keep up with each other. Don't look at what anybody else is doing. That will bring an inordinate amount of stress because there will always be somebody with more than you. And that's okay. There's going to be a lot of people with less than you, right? So that's important. And I think for the other part of that stress, start looking at what your daily activities are. Are you watching too much TV? Are you online too much? Are you having fun? Do you have hobbies? Are you doing something that really lights you up? If you can incorporate that into your life, that's going to reduce the amount of stress that you have.
And the term "keep it with the Joneses" is so fascinating to me because you even see, we talked about this last time, people who make $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, some of these people still live paycheck to paycheck. And you have to ask, okay, how does that work, right? Because you're constantly needing to fuel this desire for more things to appear like you're doing better. Like this, it wasn't as big of a deal 50 years ago because people you would see is your neighbors. Now you see everybody. You see your friends and, on vacation in Miami and they're on the crazy boats and they're with and then they've got the Rolls Royce. And it's like, you would never normally see that kind of stuff years ago, but now you feel like you have to keep up with everybody. And it's like, you really don't. I don't put things on Instagram like crazy. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't care what people think of me.
I'm going to have to go look at your Instagram account now.
Well, there's a bunch of really dumb things on there. It's nothing impressive. It's just dumb.
We have on ours, we have chickens on ours. We have the garden, we have donkeys, that stuff that's fun, stuff that's for the family, but that's part of the creator artist. For me now, all of a sudden, we bought a farm a year ago. People would have been like, what are you, nuts? What's wrong? But I like cutting the grass. I like being outside. I like taking care of the animals. I love being in the garden. That's part of my creator artist. And that's one thing that I was doing in New York that I loved when I was at the restaurant. Do you remember writing the cookbook?
Oh, yes.
Do you remember doing those videos? I think the whole family was scarred from that. But for me, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed doing those videos. And not that I was good at them, but it was something different, something that it was a lot of fun. Writing a book, creating a brand behind that, having the garden, growing all the tomatoes, bringing them inside with the kids. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was where I really lit up the creator artist in my life.
Yeah. Sophia, my sister, made a funny comment the other day, and she goes, true wealth comes about when you cut your own grass. You get to a point where you make enough to where you cut your own grass. You don't got to pay
Well,
anybody.
you showed me the meme. It's steps to financial freedom.
Yeah.
You start out by cutting your grass. The second step is you hire someone. And the third step is you go back to cutting your own grass. I'm on step 3 right now. And I was out there yesterday, Mike. I had the watch on. 2 miles I did. It was like over an hour of grass cutting, but it was awesome. I was by myself. Didn't even listen to anything. Just out in nature, running around. You see all the animals, and it feels like you accomplished something.
Yeah.
That's the great part about it. You're sitting in front of a computer sometimes. It just gets boring.
It sucks.
That's the one thing I did like about the restaurant. At the end of the day, I know that I accomplished something. That was the great part about it. So it just that feeling of being useful and having something that you really enjoy. That was that accomplishment. And it's the same thing when I cut the grass. It feels, hey, looks good now, man. Let me get the weed whacker out. It's a lot of fun.
I agree. I agree. You have any closing comments?
For me, when I look at stress and I look at making money, I wrote the book for that reason. I want people to focus more on creating happy money, money that comes into your life with that positive energy, money that you enjoy making, going to work, and it's not so much of a chore. That's like the ultimate freedom for somebody, finding what their sole purpose is, loving what they do, going to work excited. That's why I really wanted to stop working at the restaurant, because I would come home tired, angry, upset, frustrated. I didn't want you guys to see me home from work in that state. You guys are like, Dad doesn't like work. And then all of a sudden your pattern in life.
Start thinking of
yes.
That. They think, well, am I going to like work? And not even am I going to like it. Am I going to go forward and actually find something that I want to do?
I bore my soul on the show. I showed you my pain, my frustrations, the stories. How would you wrap up the show?
Well, the first thing is, now that I know I can use Papa G's credit card, I'm going to buy myself a $300 bottle of bourbon today.
$300.
$300
for paint thinner, huh?
For paint thinner. It's in a big old oak barrel. No, but I think it's interesting. I think, like I said, we need to learn how to tackle on the person itself and how to learn how to heal that person. Because if you skip that part and you go straight for the money, you're never going to get anywhere, because your mind is in this loop of trying to use money in a way that doesn't actually fulfill you. So let's learn to tackle on the person. That's where coaching comes into play. Even just talking to someone in general, that's kind of where that comes from, right? Of learning how to heal the person, not the symptom, which is money.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for spending part of your day with Michael and I. We'll see you on the next Happy Money podcast.